Briefly, my name is Sarah Lindblom. I'm a board member of the Crow River chapter of the Sustainable Farming Association. And you may or may not know that that's who puts on this whole show. So it's that Sustainable Farming Association is a farmer-to-farmer educational and networking organization. And we do have a table off over in the corner there, so if you're interested in learning more about membership or what we do, Katie over there would be happy to talk to you about that. But I will be your MC for the rest of the afternoon here. So with that, let's welcome Jerry to the stage. He really needs no introduction, but here he is. So grab a seat, make yourself comfortable. Welcome. So I typically ask the farmers to introduce themselves a little bit at this point, and I feel like I say, Jerry really needs no introduction, but if you don't know, Jerry has been the kind of brains behind this event, and you spearheaded this event when it first started. So do you want to start just by telling us, like, where did the idea from the Garlic Fest come from? How did this all start? Where did the brainchild of this event, what is it about?
And I could see several people already going, oh no, not that story again. We were looking for an event to do that was not in the Twin Cities, that got people to come out to the countryside. And we wanted it to be about the farmers, about the food. And then we said, well, we need a hook. We don't want it just to be just a farmer's market because we've already got those and they're great. And we don't need another conference. So can we do something that has a hook? And I had been growing garlic for 2 or 3 years. And so I said, I know, let's do a garlic festival, ha, ha, ha. And one of my co-board members said, good, write a business plan. So Marianne, my wife, and I started writing a business plan, and we got it projected a year out. We're going to do it next year. And the Crow River board said, no, we don't want to wait that long. We never finished that business plan. And we still have not. It may be obvious, I don't know. We still have not finished that business plan. So that we did it first year at another fairgrounds near here. And we were originally going to do it at a farm, like at my farm. And we are so glad we didn't, because the first year, 750 people showed up. Well, there's probably that many people in the room right now. But we were just floored. You know, people that want to come to something like this, well, I guess we'll do it again. And the next year, like 1,500 people showed up, even when it rained. And it just has been building ever since, which is thanks to all of you who come out and support this stuff. So that's basically how we got started. We've been doing it 18 years. We took 2 years off for that pandemic thing. So this is the 16th annual, we think.
So I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but we know Jerry has a garlic farm, but he has a really beautiful farm where he's doing a lot of other really interesting and wonderful things. You have livestock, you have row crops. I know you collaborate closely with a neighbor farmer. Can you just tell us a little bit about the history of your farm, how you came to be there, what it is that you're doing there with some of the other things besides garlic that you're doing on your farm?
Well, I like to say that we have 3 things that we produce for our community. And one of those things is certified organic garlic. Another thing is grass-fed beef grown on certified organic pasture. And the third thing that we produce for the community is conservation practices. Now, that's not something you can necessarily, thank you. That's not something you can necessarily take home in a bag or get at the butcher, but we do it for the whole community. You know, if we're taking care of the soil and the water, then that's for everybody. And we're right on the North Fork of the Crow River, and we feel very strongly about helping to clean up that river because it's a beautiful river. Cheryl lives right over on this North Fork upstream from us. And so that's our calling. And we have been, I actually married the farm. My wife is fourth generation on the farm, and her dad, Willard Kreitlow, was one of the state's leading conservationists. And he was doing all these weird things out in those fields, out on our hillside. He was going plowing in curves, and he was making terraces, and he was putting in waterways, and everybody thought he was crazy. And we're still building topsoil now on that farm and using those same practices that he put in place in the 1940s. All right, so my wife and I are getting a bit older now, and we don't have anybody to take over the farm. It's in our family. So what are we going to do about that? We want these practices to continue, to still be good for the community. So we just basically put it out there. We'd like to give somebody our farm, but you got to like this, and this, and do this, and this. Well, I am so happy to say that the fifth generation, who is not relatives of ours, are now on the farm. They built their house and moved in last fall, and they're going to be taking over gradually. And then when we're gone, they get the farm.
So you mentioned your passion for conservation and all of these interesting things that you're doing, like contour farming, and I'm sure many other practices that you're doing. And I know that you're Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certified, you're certified organic. I know you work with the NRCS to implement conservation projects. Maybe I'm missing other certifications, but what is the advantage of getting these certifications, not just doing the practices, but going through the whole process of getting certified? And have you found that there's benefits, like have you learned things from it? Are there other benefits just from having that certification and kind of jumping through the hoops that it takes to get certified?
So how many people will go out of your way to buy certified organic produce and products? Right. So even though I believe in those principles, which I greatly do, it's a marketing tool. You like to buy that stuff. And since I produce seed garlic that people want to plant, if they're certified organic, they have to buy certified organic. So that's more of a market for me. So it's also a marketing tool there. The other practices there's this Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program, which is a name that's way too long, but it's great. And here's paperwork. If you have a farm, you have farmland, you can get Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certified. And then it's like, well, that's nice. Well, you get this merit badge, you get a sign to put out there, you get these certifications that looks really cool out on the mailbox or out on the fence post. And this is true with the Natural Resource Conservation Service and some of these other government organizations, they give you money. I find that to be a real incentive. So I need to do a new conservation practice. It's going to cost $12,000 to do this. Heavy excavating equipment and shaping and bulldozers and all this stuff that I don't know how to drive. And so between 3 different organizations, our Soil and Water Conservation District, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the other alphabet soup there, it cost me $2,000. Now there's people that will say, well, you're welcome. You just use my tax dollars. And what I always reply with, and we're just speaking frankly among friends here, what I always reply is, the year that I take more than I pay, I just got to decide how I spent my tax dollars. So that's the real advantage, and there's technical support, which is great as well.
So you painted a picture a little bit of some of what these conservation practices look like with contour farming and some excavating and shaping of the earth, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about some of the more interesting or most interesting things that you're doing? And also, what is it? How do you know you're successful? What do you see visually? You look out and you say, oh, okay, it's working. What is it that you can see at your farm that's showing that the conservation practices are effective? I know that conservation practices have been in practice for quite a while, but are you still seeing more and more new things that are popping up like, yes, it's working?
Well, really, it was my job coming in with my father-in-law, who passed away at 98 years old. He drove tractor the last time when he was 94. We kind of had to get him in the tractor and out of the tractor, and then go check on him every half hour or so. But and he is who I really learned things from, and he wanted to pass on to us so that we would continue the practices. So really, my job was don't screw up. Don't mess up these practices that he's already put in place. And he really wanted us to go that extra step to certified organic, which we did that, and he got to see that before he passed on. And my wife and I, Marianne Freitlow, we're both artists. I've got a Master of Fine Arts degree, really prepared me for this farming thing, and she has a religious studies degree, and she's a musician and composer and songwriter. And so for us, when we look at the farm, when we see the animals that are coming back, when we see that we've got the bobolinks back, we've got all these, we're waiting for the meadowlarks. Once they come back, then we feel like we've done something cool. And what we see is beauty, and that's our standard. Crop yield is great, and all these things are great, but if we find that if it's beautiful, then we're probably doing the right thing.
It is a beautiful farm, I can attest to that. And if you are interested in seeing this beauty up close and personal, the SFA does field days, events where you can see farms like Jerry's that are using these conservation practices. So I'd highly recommend checking that out over at the booth over there. But I know everybody wants to hear about garlic, so I feel like we should talk about garlic. I wanted to start by asking about, you may or may not know Jerry, he doesn't just do the festival and grow garlic, he also does research, and he writes publications, and he gives presentations. I mean, he won't shut up about garlic, really, but to our benefit. And he wrote, he participated in a project that developed this publication that you can get a link to over at the Garlic Growers is in booth. And I was lucky enough to hear one of his presentations about garlic, and there was things I never knew I didn't know about garlic. I mean, you think you stick it in the ground, what's more to it than that? But what is the weirdest fact or the weirdest thing that you can think of? And I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but what is like the weirdest garlic thing you can think of? A fact, something weird you saw?
Garlic is a survivor, and a lot of people don't realize that garlic is originally a northern plant. It's not from the Mediterranean, it's not from China. Garlic originated in far western China near Uzbekistan at over 5,000 feet in very cold climate. So the garlic we grow here is very close to that original progenitor of garlic. So to me, that's already a fascinating thing. Everybody says, oh, it's Italian. Nah, it was imported to Italy. There's Babylonian records of how much garlic they imported. I'm told. I don't read Babylonian, so I'm not sure about that. We've had years where the snow has been so packed on top of the garlic because we plant when we plant. When do we plant? Okay.
In the fall.
Yeah. We plant in fall, right? Mostly around here mid-October. And then it goes over the winter. It kind of grows underground for a bit, and then it goes to sleep for the winter, and it needs that. It has to do that. If you're planting your garlic in the spring, that may be why it's not doing so well. So sometimes, though, we'll get these huge snow winters, and it'll pack the mulch down, because we do mulch our garlic, and it'll get so packed down that it's like it doesn't come up. And in the spring, we get out there and, oh no, we got to lift up this mulch and stuff. Well, we had a year that was so bad with that once that like half my garlic couldn't push through. And when we went to finally harvest, I found a bulb underground that had completely opened into cloves. It had divided into cloves. You know, it starts as one little clove, it divided into cloves. It had a stalk inside, underground. It put out the scape, the flower stalk, and it made bobials, the little seeds that are in there. All of this was underground. It never broke through and saw sunlight, and it developed an entire plant in miniature underground. And it looked so creepy. I almost gave up garlic at that point.
Thank you for painting that picture. Very, very creepy. So you mentioned that you want to mulch your garlic, right? And you want to plant it in winter. So to me, that kind of sounds like it ties in with some of the soil health principles, keeping the soil covered and keeping a living root in the soil. So does garlic fit in with kind of your conservation mindset? And if people are bought some garlic, they're planning on planting it, is there anything that they could or should do to incorporate some of these conservation practices into their garlic planting plan?
Well, if you are going into something else, because you're going to plant in October, if you can follow one of your other vegetables or follow hay, or I plant in permanent pasture. I will plant the garlic, I'll actually till, I know that's not a great thing, but I'll actually till and then we'll plant into what was pasture. Well, I had living roots right up until the time I tilled. And then we put the garlic in and it starts putting down roots right away in October, right? Then we cover the ground with mulch. So the ground is covered. And then it's there for 9 months. How many other crops do we have that go 9 months? You know, it's like a gestation period. And so you've got this coming up in July, and we're going to harvest in July. We harvested like July 15th or so this year. And immediately we'll plant a cover crop on top of that. And this year I planted tillage radish. Does anybody know tillage radish? Does anybody know daikon radish? Yeah, okay. It's a daikon radish that can grow up to 3 feet long. And it goes down deep into the soil, breaks up any hard pan, and brings minerals up from down very deep, down to the clay level. And then we'll plant clover in with that for the legumes, for the nitrogen fixing that legumes, clovers will do for the soil. And then in the fall, we'll run the cattle out there and have them go over that and eat the tops off, and then we will plant back to permanent pasture. And the next spring, we're growing new permanent pasture.
Those are some really great ideas that hopefully people can incorporate into their garlic. I like the idea of just getting a cover crop right on there right away after that. So I want to open it up to audience questions in a minute here. So I know you all have burning questions for Jerry, but before that, I have just a couple last questions. So we all know farming is really challenging, especially it's been 3 really dry years. It sounds like you have a very resilient system that maybe meets some of these challenges, but what is the biggest challenge for you? And on the flip side, what is the best thing about being a farmer for you?
Well, I'll take that second one first. You probably know I'm not going to get through an interview like this or a discussion without quoting Wendell Berry. I see some nodding heads here. One of my favorite authors, Wendell Berry. And I'm supposed to hold it. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is it really intimate? No. Okay, so Wendell Berry said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, there's only 2 reasons to farm. Either because you have to or you love to. My wife and I love to farm. even when it's really hard, we remind ourselves we really love to farm. The biggest challenge that we face, we've overcome some challenges that I'm very grateful for, and one of those was finding heirs, somebody to take this on after we're done. But right now, and I don't know if anybody else has had trouble with the weather, but the weather is the biggest challenge right now. 3 years of drought in a row. You know, we normally wouldn't have to feed cattle all summer. We're going to be on pasture rotating all summer. We fed probably already over 2 weeks now at different points, and then we can move them in another area. But we've had to feed hay, and that's not only challenging but in the work, but the cost is challenging. Yeah, weather is the biggest challenge for us. Oh, and getting old. But other than that,
So at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. So don't be shy. We've got a real life farmer right here. So take advantage of this opportunity to ask whatever you want within reason. What's that?